Turns out I owe all of you an apology because I promised I wouldn't talk about the Kyle Rittenhouse trial anymore, and yet here I am. And the reason I decided to make a video isn't to weigh in whether or not I think Kyle is guilty or innocent, because I already talked about that issue, and now it's up to the jury to come up with a decision. It's day 4 of deliberations. But instead I'm making a video because there's a lot of controversy surrounding the way the prosecution has handled this case. There's a lot of legal experts and people who watch the trial live who are highly concerned on the fact that the prosecution might have several times violated the amendment rights of the defendant. And it's natural for people to feel that way, because if one citizen has his rights violated, then other people will go, but what about my rights? Are they sacred, or can they be violated as well? So I decided to compile all of the controversy here so that you guys can know what the conversation is about if you would like to participate in it online or on various forums. So the first reason that people are upset has to do with the famous jump kick man. And I call him jump kick man not because he is Mario, but because this is what the prosecution and the defense called him during the trial. You see, this is the gentleman that kicked Kyle in the head, to which Kyle responded by emptying his gun twice and missing both times. So because of that, Kyle is being accused of reckless endangerment. Now, according to his constitutional rights, he has the right to face his accuser. In other words, he has the right for his defense attorney to question this person in court. Unfortunately, the prosecution claimed that they don't know who this man is and they can't find out, which is why they called him Jump Kick Man. Well, after the jury started deliberating, it turns out that the Daily Mail found the identity of this person. He has a lengthy criminal record and is not an individual that just stole a loaf of bread because he is hungry or was burning down a Starbucks because he was fighting for social justice. No, it's a domestic abuser, a very violent person. And this is important when talking about self-defense, when the defendant has to prove to the jury that he was afraid for his life, that the person could do severe bodily harm to him. So he wasn't brought to the stand, and the question is, why wasn't he brought to the stand? Well, apparently he wanted to testify, but he asked for immunity and the prosecution didn't give to him. Which means that the state actually knew who he was, and because they didn't reveal the identity, Kyle never got to exercise his fundamental rights of questioning his accuser, and the jury also doesn't know on the fact that every single person that Kyle shot at or shot that night actually had a criminal record. So that's the first controversy. You get to decide whether or not you think this is important. So let's move on to the second. Now, I, as many others, have followed the trial live, and I think it was one of the most viewed trial of this year. It had more than 1 million people overall just on YouTube on different live streams watching it simultaneously, as well as people watching it from within their homes. And looking at the comment section, as well as looking at what I even saw on Reddit, the overwhelming amount of people, after listening to the witnesses, came to the conclusion that it was self-defense. And the only thing that would get people to say, hold on a little bit, maybe it wasn't, has to do with a drone footage which was taken from Fox News on the Tucker Carlson show. Now, the drone footage is the evidence that the prosecution is building their entire case on at this point. Even the witness that they brought who got shot claimed that he didn't get shot until he pointed the gun at Kyle. So as you can see, it's not going well for the prosecution. Based on witnesses alone, I haven't seen many people, even on the internet, claiming that it's anything but self-defense. Even progressive people at this point, when they were listening to the testimony, were saying, oh, well, it seems like he might walk. So the only thing that actually is holding this case together, the only thing which, by the way, even the jury has requested, is the drone footage. So why is the drone footage so important? Well, the prosecution is claiming that there is a moment within that drone footage where Kyle is pointing a gun at a person, and that's when he is getting attacked. And they are pointing to the fact that if he actually pointed a gun at someone, that is provocation. And according to Wisconsin law, if you are responsible of provocation, then it cannot be self-defense. So the only thing you have to go on is this very blurry drone footage. It's a shame we don't know who is the actual person who the gun was being pointed at. It's a shame, because otherwise we could ask him whether or not the gun was pointed at him. Well, it turns out that we actually do know who the person is. His identity is known. But the problem is that he is being charged in a different case, and it just so happens that he has the right to remain silent. So he cannot be brought into court in order to be questioned. Now, this sometimes happens, even in Romanian law. Very rarely, but it does happen, especially when you have a big event, like a fight that breaks out in a bar, and you have different people committing different crimes. And they can't testify one against each other because they do have the right to remain silent, and they don't want to incriminate themselves further. So it can happen, but the reason the controversy exists is that people are pointing out that isn't it that the prosecution delayed this person's trial on purpose just so he can't testify? And I know, people are saying, well, it's a conspiracy theory. I love the fact that now by just using the phrase conspiracy theory, it means that, well, it's something that never can happen. It's beyond the shadow of a doubt. I mean, the prosecution would never. I mean, you would think that certain arrangements could be made for such a key witness, whether it is to move the Kyle Rittenhouse trial a little bit later or move the arsonist trial a little bit earlier, with the consent of the people, of course. I mean, if Kyle would say, no, I don't want my trial to be moved later, then that would be a thing, right? But from what I understand, none of those things were on the table. So, okay, fine. Let's not get into this because this one is a little bit blurry. However, the next one is the biggest controversy. The next one is the actual reason that I decided to make this video. Now, as you guys know, according to American law, all evidence needs to be provided to the defense in a timely manner. The reason for this is that you can't defend yourself against something you don't know of what you're being accused. Imagine a system where the police would arrest you, take you to court, and you'd have to defend yourself. And you're like, well, what am I being accused of? Exactly. You broke a law. You need to figure out which one is it and defend yourself. Good luck. It's kind of like what happens on YouTube. You just have, all of a sudden you receive a message, you've done community guideline violation. You can file for an appeal. Like, hold on a little bit, which community guideline did I violate it? Exactly. You know what you did, you sick fuck. So, that is not a fair system. And apparently, the defense got this footage very late. A couple of days before the trial, actually. Even though this was aired on Tucker Carlson months ago and the prosecution had ample time to have access to it. But maybe, they found it in the last moment. Maybe they were unaware and they were like, oh, this is interesting. Let's add it to the trial. But the controversy and the problem is that the defense got a different footage, a different version than the ones that the prosecution had access to. And the reason we know this is because the prosecution themselves admitted to this.
The same quality as our version, is it? Yeah. Our version is much clearer.
And at this point, the defense, who heard that, went, wait a minute. What do you mean our version is different? We're supposed to have the same version. That's how it works. The prosecution gets the evidence, sends them over to the defense, and both parties have the same evidence. What do you mean ours is different? So they decided to investigate.
Confirmed that this file that he said was directly provided to the state crime lab was an 11 megabyte file, not 4. So the information contained in the flash drive was over double the size, almost 3 times the size as to what was emailed to me. Every other piece of evidence from the state crime lab in this situation has been provided to us via Dropbox. Dropbox provides an exact forensic copy of what they have. the file title name in this situation should have been exactly the same as the one provided to the state if it was the exact same copy. The file name was nowhere near.
Now, as it turns out, the defense was given a version which is on 480p, while the jury is going to have access to a version that's high definition. So why is this even remotely important? Like, how can this prejudice the defense? Well, when you get a video evidence, you can call on experts, and they can look and they can find out whether or not there's visual artifacts. Like, that's why it's important for both parties to have the exact same evidence. Not to mention, in one situation, when you're looking at it in the zoomed in version, on the 480p, you see blurry things. And it's very easy for a person to tell you that you're seeing things that aren't there. The human mind just works that way. So for example, here you have a picture of Wolverine, and I can come up and tell you, this is a picture of two Batmen kissing. So you have one Batman over here, and he is kissing another Batman over here. Now your brain is mindfucked. Now you're seeing things that aren't there. Now imagine what you can do with a blurry image. And this is why people on the internet are up in arms right now, because the first question is, why didn't the prosecution provide this evidence earlier? And the reason for that may be, okay, maybe they didn't have it. Maybe they just found it very late, a couple of days before the trial. So they wanted to have it in, and that's when they had it. That's when they gave it to the defense. Fine. The second question is, why is there different files? Why is the prosecution having access to a higher definition than the defense does? And according to them, it's due to the fact that when they sent it, the phone of the defendant was of a different quality than their iPhone, I understand. So the encoding was different. Like when they sent it over the internet, the encoding changed, and that's why they got a much more blurrier and poorer quality version. But you have people like Tim Pool, who is pointing out that when the prosecution had their computer open, you could see two encoding programs which do just that. They change the resolution of the picture. And on top of that, the name of the file that the defense has is different than the name of the file that the prosecution has. And Tim Pool and myself, who are YouTubers, and this is what we do video editing, we know that never happens. Like, there is no way that when you send a file, you copy a file from one point and you send it to another person, the person will have a different file name than you have. We can attest this to our expertise of YouTubers for more than 6 years. This never happens. So this is why the Rittenhouse lawyers are asking the judge to declare mistrial over the video. And there's people suggesting that the judge should put the prosecution under oath to say that they didn't manipulate the video evidence and that they did act in good faith. They didn't try to compress the file or do any other of these shenanigans. So these are the controversies. Now, of course, people say, well, conspiracy theory. Circumstantial evidence isn't conspiracy theory. Like, then it is a problem. The defense has a different video format than the prosecution. So you need to get to the bottom of why that is a thing, because reality shows it's not the same evidence. So why is it not? What happened? Now, I personally just don't believe the version that you can send a file over the internet, it changes the name and the resolution. That's really weird and bizarre to me. I'm sorry. If it's possible, let me know in the comment section how it can be done. But I've never experienced something like this. Now, the last controversy has to do with the media. And the media, for the last year, have created a very interesting narrative about this trial, to the point where any person who watched the trial after listening to the media was completely baffled. It's like, hold on a little bit, this has nothing to do with reality. The media suggested that Kyle crossed state lines with a gun that he wasn't allowed to have and went to a BLM rally in order to shoot black people. Like, that was the narrative that you'd get if you listened to MSNBC and CNN and all of the other mainstream media channels. And you have politicians weighing in, calling him a white supremacist. I mean, it was so bad that Anna Kasparian, of all people, had to apologize.
I was wrong about that. Okay, so I want to correct the record. I was in fact wrong about that. So look, these details matter because if you're going to make an argument that you acted in self-defense, there needs to be some proof that there was an imminent threat. Now, what really mattered to me was how all of this unfolded. What was the thing that sparked it? What started all of it? And initially, I was under the assumption that Rittenhouse was the person who was chasing after Joseph Rosenbaum, that's how it had started. But I was wrong about that, okay? So I want to correct the record. I was in fact wrong about that. And to show you the evidence, to reinforce that I was wrong about that, I want to go to this video.
And I can't blame her, because any person, regardless of their political leanings, the moment they watched the trial, they realized that everything the media said they got wrong. 100% on every single issue. And this is why this trial is so divisive. This is why there's people protesting outside the courthouse. This is why the jury has to go to the courthouse in a van with tinted windows. Because the media divided people, politicians divided people with lies and misinformation, that I say. So what is the controversy? Because I'm pretty sure everyone knows about it. Well, the controversy is that yesterday, a person was caught doing a traffic violation, running a red light, chasing the bus that contained the jury. And apparently they got stopped and they were identified. They work for MSNBC. And now the judge has banned MSNBC from having access to the trial. And this is yet another controversy if you add the fact that this is the second time when someone was taking video footage of the jury and the police confiscated the equipment. So all of this brings into question what the fuck is going on. Why is the self-defense trial so political? Does it have to do with the fact that the reputation of politicians and multi-billion-dollar corporations are hanging on the verdict? And that if this person is found innocent, then he can sue the multi-billion-dollar corporations and the politicians? Is it that unlikely that this might have something to do with it? I don't know, it's up for you to decide. I just pointed the controversies here so you can know why people are very upset of what they are seeing. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys in the comment section. Take care.